close before this presentation or with this presentation. So a little bit of my background about my side hustle. So these are the side hustles, small businesses I've had over my career. Started off when I was 17 years old and I invented a golf game called the 19th Green Golf Game. Designed it myself, recruited my own sales force, had it in golf shops, the Memorial Golf Tournament. For those of you who are old enough to remember Lazarus, the department store, and eventually sold it off to a toy company who marketed it across the country. When I was in pharmacy school, I started a company called Physicians Cost Containment. It was one of the first buying group co-ops for physicians for medical supplies, drugs, office supplies, anything they might need to run a physician practice. Went toe to toe with McKesson, who was the big medical supplier in the area at the time. They owned a company called Went Bristol, and was promptly put out of business by McKesson. They undercut all my prices. I lost all my clients. And then once they ran me out of business, they jacked the prices to the physicians higher than they ever were. Great learning experience in how business really works. Couple of other real quick things. I developed something called the Traveler's Pharmacist. It was a travel healthcare program for travel agents to provide health information to their clients going overseas, cruises, jet lag, airplanes, immunizations, all that kind of stuff. I've written 5 published paperback books. My wife and I had a little fun side gig for 20 years called Mouse Tips, a Disney newsletter. We would go down, 3 or 4 times a year to Walt Disney World, which we loved, and we would stay at the hotels, go to the theme parks, eat at the restaurants, and we originally did it as a way to write off all these Disney trips we were taking, kind of as just if we made a little bit of money, great. If we didn't, hey, it allowed us to pay for and take several trips to Walt Disney World a year. We did it for 20 years. It was a lot of fun. And then I've done various pharmacy education, different consulting. I do a lot of consulting for, I shouldn't say a lot, I do some consulting for DEA, FBI, U.S. Department of Justice. So side hustles are in my blood. Some of them have been very successful. Some of them have been a side hustle. Some became small businesses. Some kind of ebbed and flowed, as market forces change, became, I don't want to say not so relevant, but technology overtook some of them. So I bring a lot of personal experience to this talk and not just somebody here, some ivory towered academician telling you about how to run a business when they've never actually done it. So let's just jump right in. So let's kind of talk about the world of side hustles. So where are we with side hustles? What's the market, or what do things look like? So 37 to 44% of Americans have a side hustle. Think about that. That's more than a third of Americans have some kind of side hustle or side gig that they're using to generate some income. So it's a very popular thing right now. It became more popular in what we call the gig economy after COVID hit. The average side hustle brings in about $1,100 per month to the person that's running it or doing it. 79% of side hustlers do it to supplement their income. Okay, that's their primary objective, is to supplement their full-time job. And when we talk about side hustle, most people that have a side hustle have a full-time job. They're using it as, and we'll talk about reasons why you do use or get into a side hustle here kind of in a little bit. 30% of side hustlers would like to turn it into a full-time job. That seems to be a lot of the dreams of a lot of people that start side hustles, but it does not have to be your dream. A lot of people are very happy having a side hustle that just brings them in a little bit of extra income a month, that they can do some things they normally might not be able to afford to do or give them the luxury to do. Popular side hustles include things like freelancing, online selling, and tutoring. Millennials are the most likely demographic to engage in side hustles. However, anybody at any age can engage in a side hustle. I know people that have started a side hustle at the age of 70 years old and are very successful and are having the time of their life doing it. 50% of side hustlers report increased job satisfaction with their normal day job because they have a side hustle. And the average number of hours worked per week in somebody doing a side hustle is about 10 to 20 hours. And we're going to talk a lot about time commitments and that kind of as we go through here. So this is some of the current statistics of what's going on kind of in the world of side hustles right now. So here's a great one right here. This I actually got from a from a source called Acorns. It's a CNBC website, or CNBC, part of CNBC, we know it as the financial channel on Spectrum, or on cable, or on streaming. They have a little thing called Acorns. It's a little piece that deals with side hustles and small business and making money. And these were some of the barriers that they found in when they did a survey to getting a side hustle started. Okay, and it broke it down by men and women. And if you look at the most common barriers, the like kind of the top three, the one is I just haven't gotten around to it yet. There's a great book I'm going to show you here in a little bit that I'd tell you to get, called Start. That's kind of the biggest things. People think about it. Oh, it's not the right time. I'm going to wait till the conditions are right. I have more time. It's summer. My kids are out of school or back in school, so they just haven't gotten around to it. The next most common one is I'm not sure what type of side hustle I could have. And we're going to give you some things to think about, based on your strengths, your interests, your passions, where a nice little side hustle or side gig might be just waiting for you to get started out there. Number three is, especially among women, is I don't know where to begin in setting up a side hustle. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those tonight, some of that stuff tonight, but tonight's more about stimulating creativity and stimulating interest. Others are things like I feel too tired from my regular job to pursue one. I think all of us feel that at some point. I'm worried it would take away from my family and my kids. That's something where, family time's precious to people and personal time's precious to people. That's where you just got to set barriers or boundaries. And we'll talk about that as well. And I'm worried it would distract from my main employment. The one thing you don't want to do with your side hustle is put your main job at risk. Okay, so you don't want it to be a distraction. So again, just a nice little survey. It's a few years old, but it's probably one of the best ones that I've seen out there. I'm going to give you 4 books that you may want to think about if you're thinking about starting a side hustle. Of all the dozens of books I've read, these are probably the 4 best ones. And the first one is called The $100 Startup. I'm a big fan of what's called bootstrapping, meaning that when you start a side hustle or a small business, you try to do it without going into debt and borrowing a lot of money. And this book, The $100 Startup, gives you some real tools of how to kind of get your side hustle started with not a lot of cash, not a lot of investment, and how to kind of start it up, I don't want to say on a shoestring, but, with some current funds that you may have. And just, the title explains what it is. It's The $100 Startup. The next one is a great one. It's called Start. Most people, remember, one of the number one things we just saw was people don't start a side hustle because it's not the right time. I'm not sure when I want to get started. This book is great about giving you the confidence to just get started. And it's never the right time. It's never a perfect time. All market conditions never line right up perfectly. This book kind of gives you some good tools and tips and techniques, and gives you the confidence to just get started. Because if you don't just get started, you don't just start, just do it, you're never going to know whether you're going to be successful or not, and how successful it could be. So these are 2 great books. Here are 2 others. Again, Side Hustle, Building a Side Business and Making Extra Money Without Quitting Your Day Job. Again, this is from the author of The $100 Startup. Another great book by this gentleman. I would highly suggest this one. And then if you haven't read The 4-Hour Workweek, this is a great book, especially for side hustles, that talk about how to maximize your time and how to be efficient with a side hustle or a business or a small business. And, it talks about a lot about on-demand type of side hustles. Side hustles are things that people are buying from you, or training programs are things that are not dependent on, you charging an hour to be a tutor somewhere. And, you could have 100 clients, but there's not 100 hours in the week when you could tutor. This talks about those types of things and being kind of the more on-demand kind of side hustle type thing. So a great book. These are the 4 I would recommend. So these 2 right here, and these 2 right here. You can get them from the library. Sometimes with a book, I don't want to spend $30 on a book. I'll get it from the Columbus Public Library. You can go on, request it, have it sent to any one of their branches. These are all older titles, so they're usually all, they're all usually available. Look at it, read through it, and then if I like it, then I go out and buy it. So let's talk about some thoughts on business principles. Now, this presentation does not focus on the business principles of starting and developing and managing a side hustle. I'm not going to talk about accounting and taxes and all those types of things. That's a whole nother set of programs in and of itself. This is presentations about idea generation and first steps. It's about getting your creative juices flowing and thinking about your potential side hustle before you invest a lot of time, energy, and money. Because that's the key. Yes, you want to start. Yes, you want to get going, but you need to think it through so you don't waste a lot of your most valuable asset, which is your time. Now, some thoughts on business principles. I'm going to just spend 5 minutes on this. You know, when you start crossing over from side hustle into actual business, these are some things you need to think about. You need to think about business registration. You got to register your business with the Secretary of State. Government registration. Do you have to register if it's a pharmacy type business? Do you got to register with the Board of Pharmacy? Do you have to register with any other government entities? There's a lot that you need to think through. You need to think about accounting principles, okay? How are you going to keep track of your expenses, your sales? Do you have to pay sales tax? Are there tax implications? You know, if you're selling something and you're selling them to residents in Ohio, you're going to have to collect sales tax, and you're going to have to register as get a vendor's license with your county auditor or treasurer in the county that you live in. And when you think about sales tax, if you sell to multiple counties, you've got to keep track of who you sell to where, and everybody's sales tax is different in every different county. You know, when you think about other tax implications, if you start making money at this, you're going to have to pay income tax on it. And after that first year, if you're regularly making money at your side hustle, you're going to have to pay estimated tax to the federal government and maybe the state. So those are things you need to think about. You need to think about banking issues. You're going to have to set up a bank account. Unless they're paying you directly, you know, as yourself, you're going to have to set up a bank account if you decide to take a kind of the small business route. So those are some issues. Do I need insurance? You know, with my consulting in that, in kind of pharmacy and healthcare, I have my own liability insurance through Pharmacist Mutual. Cost me $169 a year, but I sleep good at night. I've got my own insurance just in case. You know, what type of liability do you have with your side hustle? Is it worth forming an LLC or a limited liability corporation or company? And you know, there's all kinds of other regulatory issues and hurdles you need to think about. So just if you're going to escalate it beyond a side hustle, these are a lot of the things you're going to need to think about and get some advice and a mentor to kind of help you with. But I just want to kind of plant those seeds in your mind now as we kind of start to go through some of the other stuff, focusing more on the creative side. So, side hustle. What type? What type of side hustle do I want to start? I tell all of my students, and I have students come to me all the time, and I give them some of those books. If I get a student that says, hey, I got a business idea, Dr. Sullivan, I give them the $100 startup right off the bat and have them read that and use that as a resource. But when you're thinking about what type, is it something in pharmacy? When we're talking about a side hustle, you're thinking about, is there an unmet need, or is there a pain point or a pressure point that I think I can help with? And is it something in pharmacy itself? And gosh, we all know there's a lot of pain points and pressure points in pharmacy right now. But maybe you think, you know, I work my 40 hours a week in pharmacy. I want to do something different. I want to stay in healthcare, but outside of pharmacy. Okay. So maybe it's something related in the healthcare arena, but it's totally outside of pharmacy. Okay. Pharmacy is my regular gig. I want to do something. I want to expand my horizons a little bit. Is it something I enjoy, but totally outside of pharmacy or healthcare? You know, maybe I like to do woodworking, or I like to cook, or there's some type of craft I like to do, or maybe I just like being outside and want to cut grass. Okay, just get a little exercise, be outside, and I want to do something totally outside of pharmacy. Okay, is it something I want to learn about? Is it, you know what? I've always wanted to learn another language. I'd love to be a translator. I would love to learn Mandarin Chinese and be a translator. So I'm going to start a side hustle because it's something I want to learn about. Is it something outside my comfort zone? You know, some people are like, you know, I am in a rut. I just got to find something totally different that's going to reinvigorate me, re-energize me, something completely out of my comfort zone. And it could be, you know what? I'm going to start making bread, okay, and sell it at a local farmer's market, okay? Totally outside my comfort zone. It's something I have an interest in, something I want to learn about, but I'm going to start selling bread and cinnamon rolls at a farmer's market. And then again, it may be something totally, totally different. Like I said, maybe you just want something that is, I don't want to say where you're just almost like on autopilot. It's not highly technical. There's not a large degree of thinking. I just want to be outside. So maybe I'm going to start giving guided trips through the metro parks in Columbus or through the state parks, or I'm going to become a travel agent and sell cruises, and because I just love cruises and everything about them, and I get excited about it, and I want to help other people have a good cruise and help them make good decisions. So again, you need to think about, what type of side hustle do you want? Is it in an area that you have some expertise and already know and do, or is it something totally different? Now, here's probably the biggest question that I tell people to think about when we think about a side hustle. When you're thinking about a side hustle, is it a hobby? Is it a side hustle? Or is it a business? Now, let's talk about the three buckets. So there's kind of three buckets here. When you get an idea, something you want to do, where does it fall? So, hobby. If it's a hobby, profit is not your motive. You're really just doing it, and you may or may not make enough money to cover expenses. So these may be things like gardening. Maybe you enjoy growing tomatoes and you just like giving them away. And, maybe I might sell a few at the farmer's market, but, I really don't care to make money. I just enjoy doing it. Or making jewelry or woodworking or crafting. Those are hobbies. When you don't care if you make any money, okay? I mean, you'd like to make enough to cover your expenses, but you don't care if you make any money, then it's a hobby. It's not really a side hustle. And that's okay. Okay, that's okay. Some people just want to do some things or engage in something different. That's just purely a hobby. A side hustle. Side hustle is work you do to make money outside of your normal day job, okay, to provide extra income. That's the key. To provide extra income. You want to make money. You want to make more than the expenses that you put into it. Side hustles have moved from fun projects to potential major sources of income. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that have side hustles that are generating six-figure incomes. Okay, you can go to the internet, YouTube, and see all kinds of rags to riches stories. And a lot of times those are greatly exaggerated. We'll talk about that as well. And then the last one is a business. So I got my side hustle and I'm making good money. I'm making 50 grand a year doing consulting to pharmacies on MTM services. And I think, you know what? I think I can make this an actual business. Okay, I can make it a real business. Okay, that's when you think about it's got to become more structured and all those other things we just talked about. Now, it doesn't have to be full time. You decide to make it a business, it could just be a part-time 10-hour, 20-hour a week business. But when you're thinking about a side hustle, you need to think about which of the three buckets does this idea fall into? Do I want it to fall into? And where do I want it to go in the future? Now, some reality checks here about side hustles versus hobbies versus business. You cannot turn every hobby into a side hustle, okay? You just can't. How many people have heard, oh my gosh, that is a beautiful, beautiful cake that you made for your son or your nephew or your grandson or granddaughter's birthday. You ought to start making cakes for a living. You ought to charge for these. People would buy these. The decorations are awesome and, they taste great. But again, not every hobby can be turned into a side hustle. And remember, side hustles are not meant to make you rich, but to provide extra income beyond your day job. That's why we call it a side hustle. If you want to formally pursue it, to take to that next level and really raise the income expectations, you've probably crossed over into the business side of it. Many people turn a hobby into a side hustle or business because they hear, hey, people will pay you money for that. I can't tell you how many people tell me, said, you know what? You make excellent chocolate chip cookies. You ought to open a cookie shop or a bakery or, start selling those. Those are really awesome. Or, man, I really love your pasta sauce. You should open a restaurant, okay? More failures in business of restaurants than anything else. So when you hear that, people will pay you money for that. That's a cue to kind of take a step back and think a little bit about everything that's going to go into it, time-wise, resource-wise, and do you have that kind of interest in it. Hobbies are lower pressure, enjoyable activities. You do it because it's a release. It's a stress reliever. You like doing it. You enjoy it. Turning a hobby into a side hustle may add stress or reduce enjoyment. I can't tell you how many people were like, You know what? I liked baking cakes for family and friends, but when I tried to turn it into a side hustle and was trying to sell them through Facebook and things like that, it just wasn't as fun anymore. That's when you need to take a step back and say, wow, I really want to take this back to the hobby level. And not every hobby has to generate money. You may do it because it makes people happy or because you enjoy doing it. My sister-in-law makes awesome hardtack candy. I mean, it is excellent. She makes it at Christmas and everybody enjoys it and everybody looks forward to it. But you know what? She does it because it makes people happy and she enjoys doing it. She doesn't want to make 150 pounds of it at Christmas and sell it. She just likes the enjoyment she gets from making people happy from enjoying her hardtack candy. So again, not every hobby has to generate money. She invests probably $100 a year at Christmas in making hardtack and giving it as gifts, and she's okay with that. And that's totally fine as well. Now, starting a side hustle. Please remember being a pharmacist is your full-time job, okay? So, that's your number one priority. That's providing you your health insurance. That's providing you with, paying your rent, your mortgage, putting clothes on your kids, putting food on the table. So never lose sight of, I need to keep my full-time job healthy and engaged in that. And that goes with don't sacrifice your full-time job. Don't say, well, I'm going to try and cut into my full-time job time a little bit, or, I'm not going to take that promotion in my full-time job because, I'm going to get this side hustle up and going. You really need to think that through, okay? One of the biggest questions I tell people is you need to ask yourself, realistically, how much time do you have to devote to the side hustle beyond all your normal responsibilities? So I think I want to start baking bread and cinnamon rolls and pastries and take them to the local farmers market every week. Okay. All right. I'm already working 40 hours a week as a pharmacist every other weekend or every third weekend. So I can't go every other or every third weekend. I've got 2 young kids. Okay. We just bought a house. We're remodeling some pieces of it. I'm helping take care of my mother who just had hip surgery. Realistically, you need to think about, if I'm going to start this side hustle, how much time do I have to devote to it with everything else going on in my life? And is there a side hustle where you can multitask the side hustle with being a pharmacist? Maybe you have some downtime at work here and there, and I'm not telling you to jeopardize your job, but is there a way to do some multitasking? And whatever you do, keep that work-life balance. What you don't want your side hustle to turn into is you're sacrificing family time, you're missing family dinners, you're staying up till 1 or 2 in the morning. So when you get up the next morning, it's hard to kind of fully engage with your family or your loved ones or your friends. So, starting a side hustle is all about keeping that work-life balance. And maybe that may push your timeline out a little bit for some of the goals you set, but you know what? You don't want to become a workaholic with it, because I'll talk about here in a little bit, okay? When you become over enthused and a workaholic about a side hustle, it actually detrimentally affects a lot of other things in your personal, your professional, and your full-time job life. So how do I select a side hustle idea? You need to ask yourself, why do I want to start a side hustle? Okay. This is probably the second most important question you need to ask yourself. Why do I want to start baking bread and cinnamon rolls and taking them to the farmer's market? Okay. Remember, for a side hustle, we're wanting to make a little bit of profit. Okay. It's not a hobby. We want to make some money. So what's our goal? Is it to pay off some debt? Maybe we got student loan debt we want to pay off. Maybe I want to pay off my car early. Okay, whatever that might be. Maybe I just want to provide some extra income for a better lifestyle. Maybe my goal is, I would like to generate an extra $100 a week, okay, in profit. Just $100 a week. So me and my spouse and my kids can go do something fun once every 2 weeks. We can go to the movies. We can take a little mini trip. We can go to Cedar Point. We can go to the Ohio State game. We can, I just want a little extra income for a better lifestyle. Maybe it's to pay for a big event. I know people that start a side hustle because they want to take that vacation of a lifetime. They want a new car. They want a boat. And once they make enough money and save up to get that big event or that big thing, then to them, they claim victory and the side hustle's over. Okay. So it may be just to pay for a big event. Maybe my day job doesn't provide me with enough income. Now I know we can always use, everybody can always use a little bit more money. But maybe with my day job, I love my day job. It's great. I love helping people. You know, it's so fulfilling, but it just doesn't quite provide me enough income. Gosh, I wish I could had a side hustle that give me just a couple of extra $100 a month, or maybe $300 or $400 a month, that would make life just a little bit easier on me income wise. And maybe you develop a side hustle because you're like, you know what, I want to quit my day job. Okay, I want to try to develop a side hustle into a full-fledged business, be the own owner, be my own entrepreneur, and that's my goal with it. Okay, so ask yourself, why do I want to start a side hustle? Select a side hustle based on your skills and interests. If you chase the money, oh my gosh, this is a hot idea out there, I'm going to start a side hustle, but you don't have a really strong passion or interest for it, you're never going to put in enough time and energy to make it successful. So make sure that your side hustle aligns with your skills and your interests, okay? And then again, think about how much time can I realistically commit to this side hustle? Because developing a side hustle can take a lot of time, okay? If I only really have 5 hours a week to commit to this, you know, starting a baked goods business I'm going to take to the farmer's market is probably going to be a 15 to 20 hour a week endeavor, and I really only have 5 hours to devote to it, so I'm setting myself up for failure. So think about, how much time do I have to really commit to it? How much money do I want to make? Do I need regular income or just fun money? You know, hey, you know what? I really need an extra $200 a month or $500 a month. Or is this just your fun money that you kind of sock away somewhere at home, or you put it in your bank account or a separate savings account just to go out and have some fun with family or friends, or just yourself to go out and take yourself out to a really nice dinner, to the movies, on vacation, those types of things. So you got to ask yourself, you know, how much do I want to make? Does it interfere with my day job? Whatever you do, even if you're thinking about taking it to a full-fledged business, don't let it potentially sacrifice your day job, okay? How flexible is it? You know, one of the nice things about a side hustle is the flexibility. And when you think about a side hustle that you're going to develop, how flexible is it? How much flexibility does it give you? Or is it something like with the baked goods and the farmer's market? I know every Saturday morning I got to go to the farmer's market, so that's not that flexible really. So again, think about flexibility. Is it something, if it's consulting, that I can do from home in my pajamas, or sitting out on my back porch, or you know, take my laptop with me when I travel? So think about flexibility. Choose something that has some room for growth. You know, look at your potential market. You know, if it's something where it's a very small niche of people and it doesn't have a lot of room for growth, that might limit, you know, where your side hustle can go and where you can take it. And make sure it actually pays or provides income. If not, it may be a hobby, okay? If it's never going to make back what you put into it, okay, you're not even going to break even, okay, or you barely break even, then it's not a side hobby. It's a side hustle. It's most likely just a hobby. So, you know, keep those things in mind. So let's talk about some side hustle tips here. Choose a side hustle that aligns with your skills and interests. We talked about that. Don't just chase the money. Don't just chase the hot thing, because you'll never have the interest or the passion, put the time into it. You know, set a fair price in whatever you're selling or offering. Remember, a side hustle is not a get-rich-quick proposition. Okay, you don't want to come in and significantly overprice something, and then you don't have any sales, and you put all that time, effort into it, maybe money, and you don't sell anything. You know, commit to a schedule. I'm going to commit that I'm going to work on this 5 hours a week. Even if I have to get up one day a week at 5 in the morning to work on this 2 hours before my kids go to school, one day a week, I'm going to commit to a schedule. Don't neglect your regular job. Okay, don't put your regular income at risk, and watch your expenses. So let's say that I want to start this new side gig where I'm baking bread and pastries and taking them to the farmer's market. Don't go out and buy a $2,000 mixer right off the bat. I'm sure the mixer you have at home will do just fine. Watch your expenses. You know, every side hustle has to be marketed, just like any business. So figure out how you're going to market it, how you're going to reach your potential customers. And keep your business expenses separate. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes I see with a side hustle is when it comes to the end of the year and it's like, gosh, I sold $5,000 worth of these baked goods. Well, how much tax do I have to pay? Do I pay on the 5,000? Well, no, you've got inputs in that. You've got all your ingredients, all your costs, your boxes, your packaging. Keep those business interests expenses separate so you can deduct them from your sales. That, and you only pay tax on your true income. So keep your expenses separate. I buy an accordion file for my different side hustles, and it's by month, January through December. And whenever I buy something, I take the receipt and I throw it in that month. And then at the end of the year, I add up all, or monthly, I add up all my receipts and keep track of my expenses that way. Make sure you keep track of all your expenses and all your receipts. Think about this. Mileage on your car. Okay, you're driving to Sam's Club to pick up office supplies. Do you know the IRS lets you deduct 60 cents a mile for every mile you drive for business? Okay, those can add up and reduce your net income that you show that you have to pay to the government. Please make sure you report all your income to the government. I report every penny I make, and I sleep good at night. If my side hustle makes $10,000 in sales and my expenses are $5,000, I made $5,000 in profit, I'm reporting that $5,000 to the government, because I don't want 2 years from now it catching up with me, them coming after me for unreported income. And I know you think, oh, they'll never find out, they'll never know. Again, that's a dangerous game to play. Make sure you set aside money for taxes. If you know you're going to make $5,000 in profit, make sure you have some money set aside so when you file your income taxes at the end of the year, you have money to pay the state and federal income taxes. And remember, after 1 year, you may have to pay estimated taxes on your side hustle. Make sure you set some goals for your side hustle as well. That's important. It keeps you focused. It lets you know if you're making progress, and it's just an overall great idea. And again, when we talk about that work-life balance, make room for some downtime and don't work too much. I hear so many people that get involved with side hustles that they just get burned out. And it's really going good, and they're starting to just turn that corner and maybe start making a nice little profit, and they're just burnt out, and they're like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's okay if you have to drag it out a couple of extra months. This is a side hustle. This is not your primary source of income or your primary business. It's okay if it takes you 6 months instead of 3 months to get to $1,000 a month in sales. Okay, so don't overly put pressure on yourself. Eliminate distractions. One of the biggest problems I see is people get distracted from what their focus of their side hustle is. So I hate to keep using the bakery example. Let's say I'm making baked goods and stuff to take to the local farmer's market, and they're like, hey, you know what? Why don't you branch out and do homemade candies and do jams and jellies? I mean, those are all part of Ohio's cottage food industry. You don't have to have a commercial kitchen. You can start doing all those things. Well, again, now I've got more products to make. I might not have the interest in those. I might not have the expertise in how to make them. There may not be a market for them. People know me for my baked goods. So, opportunities sometimes become distractions, and you need to think those through. Learn during your downtime. Those 4 books I give you, that's something you can throw in your bag and take with you to work. And when you have a little bit of downtime or on your lunch hour, you can be reading and learning and building up those skills to make your side hustle successful. Don't be afraid to join forces with others. There are a lot of other people out there. There's a lot of side hustle communities out there. A lot of people have done similar things that you have and have made mistakes and learned from them. Learn from them. Find a mentor. Let a mentor help coach you through this. Yeah, I had a side hustle where I took some baked goods to a farmer's market, and this is what I learned, okay? And, please don't make these mistakes I did. It can save you a lot of time, money, and frustration. And whatever you do, make sure there's no conflict of interest with your day job. Now, if you're doing something totally outside, what your normal job is, that's fine. But, if I'm working as a pharmacist and I'm going to do an MTM consulting business and my employer does a lot of MTMs with their patients, that may be a conflict of interest. So, make sure that it's not something that you could get fired over, or that they could tell you, hey, your little side hustle's taken away from our business, or you're recruiting your patients or customers for your side hustle from our customers here at your day job. And that's a conflict of interest. So you need to keep those things in mind when you're developing your side hustle. You really don't want to blur or cross that line. There are no gray areas when it comes to conflict of interest with your day job, because you really can't afford to lose your day job when you're starting or doing a side hustle. All right, let's talk about some pitfalls of side hustle. It can compromise your day job. Okay. I'm got this side hustle going, and then all of a sudden, some overtime becomes available that I could work. And that might really give me a leg up to becoming a district manager or a pharmacy supervisor. And I say, no, I don't want to take it. I don't want to do that. I'm working on my side hustle. Don't let it compromise your day job. Don't call in sick to work on your side hustle, things like that. Don't keep your day job as your primary focus with your side hustle when it comes to, that's your primary source of income. We already talked about not paying your taxes. You make income, declare it. Believe me, you'll sleep better at night. Okay. And not taking into account taxes you'll owe. So I made $5,000 this year, first time in my side hustle. I pay tax on it. I owe an extra $800 in taxes. Now, next year, I make another $5,000 in profit. The thing with the federal government is when you make money in a side hustle, you've got to pay taxes, estimated taxes on the money that you think you're going to make that next year. And it's based on what you made on your side hustle the previous years. And if you don't pay tax on it, they're going to hit you with a penalty. Okay. So again, there's some tax implications with this. Just always think about pay taxes on what you owe. Think about, am I going to get burned out? Okay, I am so excited about this side hustle. I am just working day and night on it. Okay, it's easy to get burned out, and we all understand that in healthcare right now. You didn't do enough research. You know what? I make the best cream pies. I'm going to make cream pies, banana cream, chocolate cream, and I'm going to take them to a local farm market. Okay, what you don't know is, because you didn't do enough research, is Ohio's cottage food law industry is things like candies and cookies and baked goods can be baked in a home kitchen and sold at a farmer's market. But anything with milk or cream or things like that has to be made in a commercial kitchen following all the food safety things because of the potential for harm. So here I've invested all this time, energy, and maybe have liability making these cream pies, and it wasn't even allowed under Ohio law to be done from my home kitchen. Not factoring costs of your side hustle. Maybe I just want to cut grass. I just would like to make a couple $100 a week extra, maybe cut 4 or 5 yards. I got a lawnmower. It's not going to cost me anything to get started, just gas to cut the lawns. Till you realize that now you're using your lawnmower 4 or 5 times more than what you normally do, and it breaks. And now you got to buy a new lawnmower to the tune of $500. That's a cost you might not have factored into your side hustle. Losing out on earnings at your day job, we talked about that already. Talked about potential for advances, raises, overtime, things like that. So, all things pitfalls you need to consider when you're starting a side hustle. My expenses are out of control. I see this as kind of the biggest problem with a side hustle. People think, okay, I want to make this type of craft. I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy a $5,000 3D printer, a brand new laptop, $2,000, $1,000 worth of software, when maybe you could have got away with doing it with a less expensive 3D printer, your current laptop, and maybe some software that's available for free. So people get excited and they want to jump in and buy all this fancy equipment and make all this investment. And before you know it, you got $10,000 invested in a side hustle generating $500 a month. Okay. It's going to take you forever to make that money back. Remember I said don't overprice things? Don't set your rates or your prices too low. Okay. Again, there are lots of information out there to tell you how to set prices on whatever it is you want to sell. Everything from crafts to consulting services. There's nothing worse when you're selling fresh baked sourdough bread and you price it at $2 a loaf, and it's costing you $1 a loaf to actually make, and you're selling 25 of these a week. You think, wow, I did all this work for $25. I'm only charging $2 a loaf. Even at Kroger's, fresh sourdough bread's $4 a loaf, and this is homemade artesian sourdough bread. I should have been charging $5 or $6 a loaf for this. Another pitfall is you don't separate your personal and business finances. You need to keep that separate, even if it's just a side hustle. You overinvest too quickly. Talked about that. You buy all this equipment before you even know if it's going to become something you can make a go. You don't set goals. You just I'm getting started and let's just see how it goes. You need to set some goals. You need to have something to shoot for. You need to have something to measure against whether, this is becoming successful and worth the time, energy, and effort that you're putting into it. Lack of focus or outside distractions. I see this a lot. People have a side hustle. They build up a clientele, a group of customers, and then they're like, kids are out of school for the summer or it's Christmas time. I'm just going to take the next 2 or 3 months off and not do anything with my side hustle. And for some side hustles, that's okay. They're side hustles. But if you have regular customers that depend on you and buy from you or you provide goods and services to, you're gone for 2 or 3 or 4 months. They're going to find those services and goods somewhere else. And then you got to rebuild your customer base again. So just things to think about. This is what I find happens to a lot of people. They got a side hustle. It's successful. They just want to provide some extra income. Hey, it's providing me an extra $1,000 a month. This is great. Now they feel the pressure to make it their full-time job. Maybe you don't have to. You like your full-time job. You like something just to do on the side, provides a little bit of income. Don't feel that pressure. Don't listen to all those people saying, you need to go for it. You need to make this your full-time gig. You need to quit that other job and devote all. Imagine what you could do if you devoted all your energy to your side hustle. Well, maybe that's not what I want to do. That's not why I started this side hustle. So again, things to. All right. We talked about a lot with side hustles. I want to talk a little bit about creating a niche, because I really believe that the true measure or the true thing that makes a side hustle successful is having a niche. Okay. A niche is something that nobody else is doing. It's a little subset of the market where you can offer a product or a service that's either totally different or something that's just a little bit better than what's out there. Okay. You don't have to be everything to everybody. Okay. You just may feel comfortable just having your little side hustle that takes care of just one little small niche, and you do it very well and you got a loyal customer base. It's never going to be a huge business. It's a great side hustle. Having a niche is great. I see this in all kinds of businesses all the time. They try to be everything to everybody. You got a brewery that makes awesome craft beers. They got this nice niche, okay? And then all of a sudden they decide to get into wine and spirits and food and catering. And, they had a good gig going on when they had this nice little niche, this little microbrewery, Don't try to expand. I'm not saying you can't expand into other businesses or other side hustle little niches, but just be careful about that. Sometimes it's okay to say no to an opportunity. So when you think about creating a niche, it must be something you have a passion for. Again, if you don't have a passion for it, you're never going to put the time into it to make it successful. You need to be laser focused in developing this niche. Okay. For me, if anybody asks me kind of what my niche is, it's kind of pharmacy law, I guess you'd say. That's kind of what I'm known for. That's my niche. It's a very small specialized area. But over 27 years of teaching law, that's kind of where I live. It's my little niche, and I kind of try to stay laser focused kind of on that. Be your own advocate in developing your niche, okay? You got to get out there and market. You got to make yourself known out there. You got to do some marketing. You got to get out there and do some free talks and free appearances and some things out there to develop an awareness that you have this niche. And please, find a mentor to help you develop this niche. Believe it or not, there are a lot of people out there who are successful business people, successful people with side hustles that would love to share their expertise, and they like helping other people become successful. Okay. It's not all about to them, well, they're going to steal my ideas or they're going to steal, what experience I've got. A lot of business people like to help other business people. So find you a mentor that can help you develop that niche. How does my niche create value for the customer and myself? With a side hustle, whether it's a business or a side hustle, it's all about creating value. How do you create value for yourself and primarily for your customer? Something that's going to make their life more enjoyable, easier, remove a pressure point, make a process simpler. How does it create value? Now, remember when I talked about burnout and overwork? Look at bullet point number 2. Memorize this. A strength taken to an extreme becomes a liability. I got this awesome niche, in pharmacy law, and I'm going to devote all my time to it. I'm going to reach out to other colleges of pharmacy and chains and hospitals and offer as consultant on, pharmacy practice legal issues and that. And I'm just going all in on this 70 hours a week. That's where a strength almost becomes a liability. I'm spread too thin. I can't give my customers in my niche the time and energy they need. I've got so many projects, I'm not doing any of them well or providing any of them the time that they need. So keep that in mind. And don't be afraid to seize the moment when it presents itself. I know this sounds silly, but there are a lot of people that, believe it or not, are afraid of success. That side hustle is just getting over that mountain. It's just getting over that hump where you're starting to be successful and you start thinking, wow, what happens if this really takes off? How's this going to affect my family life? I really like being a pharmacist at the community pharmacy I worked at, or the hospital. I really don't want to give that up. How am I going to stop this runaway train if it starts getting too big? Those are good problems to have, and that's okay to scale your side hustle back down a little bit. Maybe even keep your niche, narrow your niche even a little bit more. But some people are afraid to seize that opportunity when it's out there because they're afraid, what if it becomes too successful? And I know that seems very counterintuitive, but it's a very real issue that a lot of young entrepreneurs and people starting side hustles deal with. So think about that when you're creating your niche. Now, talk about creating a niche. We got about 10 minutes left. Let's talk about creating your personal brand. I do this with my students. I just did this in a program with one of our student groups, the SNAFA group. They had me come in the last 3 years, and we talk about how do you create your own personal brand? When somebody asks, who are you? What do you do? What are you about as a pharmacist? Okay. What's your brand? What kind of pharmacist are you? You really need to think, even if you don't want to start a side hustle, you need to think about what's my brand as a pharmacist, as a healthcare professional, as a person who starts a side hustle. Who am I? What do people think of me? What is my brand? Okay. When people think of Nike shoes, they know that brand. They know it's high quality, it's athleticism, it's performance, those types of things. So, what's your personal brand? It defines who you are. Okay. This is what your strengths, passion, and goals communicate about you. Your personal brand. And I have my students go through an exercise. I tell them to develop a tagline for themselves. A tagline is something, it's just a little line that describes who you are. And I got some examples here I'm going to show you in a minute. Okay. And we can go through an exercise, and I'm going to show you the exercise you can do on your own when you have some time to develop a good tagline for yourself. And a lot of people put it on their resume, they put it on their CV. When somebody says, some people call it a shortened elevator pitch. What's your tagline? It's usually something that's somewhere between 3 and 10 words that describes who you are. It describes your personal brand. It tells a story about you. This is something, if you do anything or take anything away from this presentation, like, I'm not going to really start a side hustle, kind of in hobby land. This is something you can take away from here. You need to develop your own tagline. Okay. Now, what do you need to think about with creating your personal brand, okay, and your tagline? You want it to communicate with clarity who you are. You want it to describe yourself. You want it to say just enough, but not too much. You don't want it too long. And you want to make it create a double take. So when somebody, says, hey, we're meeting you for the first time. Hi, I'm Donnie Sullivan. I'm a pharmacist. I'm the pharmacy law guy. It makes them think, pharmacy law guy? What's that mean? It makes them ask questions about you. It makes them make a double take, okay, to learn more about you. It creates a personal brand about yourself. It sets you apart from the competition. It's who you are. Now, here are some ways or some things you need to think about with creating a tagline. This is what I make my students go through, okay? First, list your strengths. List your passions. And then whether it's pharmacy or healthcare, or maybe you're a coach somewhere or wherever it might be, how do these strengths and passions, how can you make that into your own personal tagline? Your own 5 to 10 word sentence fragment that describes who you are, that people will know when they see your tagline, that's what you stand for. That's your passion. That's your strength. That's who you are. That's what you bring to healthcare. That's what you bring to pharmacy. Now, I got some examples here for you. So mine, Okay, I didn't really come up with this. It's just kind of was given to me over the years. The pharmacy law guy. You got a law question, call Donnie Sullivan. He'll answer it for you, and if he can't, he'll reach out to the board and get you an answer. So that's kind of my tagline, the pharmacy law guy. These were taglines, the next three that students came up with over the last couple years when I had them do that exercise with strengths and passions. This one was a great one. This one was last year. A pharmacist with a purpose. That was their tagline. Can you imagine seeing that on a resume? I'm a pharmacist with a purpose, okay? Everything I do has a purpose to it, and I'm very determined, very driven. Those 5 words there say a lot about that patient. This right here was one that they came up with 2 years ago, a student did. Providing care no matter where, okay? I'm that pharmacist where I'm going to be there for you. Whether it's giving immunizations at your work site, whether it's if I have to drop a prescription off to your home, whether if it's in a clinic, in my pharmacy, at a FQHC, wherever it might be, providing care no matter where. That's who I am. This one was one that came up with this year. Putting patients first. That's a great tagline. That says that that's that pharmacist's why. Patients come first. No matter what else is going on, patients come first. Putting patients first. What a great tagline to put on our resume. That's definitely going to get some interest. That's definitely going to get somebody asking you questions about, well, tell me about putting patients first, because that's what we want to do. We want to take care of our patients, make them our primary focus. And then I put one in here from Apple. You know, Apple's tagline is, or one of their taglines is, think differently. You know, they think outside the box. They're always coming up with new technology, new solutions, new things to make you more productive, make things more accessible to you. So think differently. You know, that's one of Apple's taglines. And you really almost visualize what that means when you think about Apple, their products, and that tagline. So again, something I think you need to think about is creating a tagline for yourself. And again, whether you want to do a side hustle or not, it's something that I think every pharmacist should do. And I tell my students they should do the same thing. Now, I listed a few websites here. There are by no means an exhaustive list. If you're going to offer a side hustle as a service, these are some places where you can post it and kind of try to generate interest, okay? Now, thing you got to remember about these, they're going to take a cut of what you get paid. So things like TaskRabbit and Fiverr, you know, if you're in charge of $100 an hour for tutoring, they may take 25% of it or 20% of it. So you need to think that through. But that's a big forum where people go to look for help in specialized skills and services. And then here's some places to sell products. And I just put 2 of the big ones on here, Etsy and Shopify. You know, there are millions of products on these. Sometimes it's hard to get noticed. So you got to really do your research about, you know, how you list things and how you get noticed. But here's some places where if you're thinking about selling something, you know, go on there and just see what kind of competition is out there. All right. Let's finish up here with a few cases. And this is where I want you to kind of unmute, or you can put things in the chat. And this is Aaron, where I'll get you to help me. Some things to think about, okay? So a lot of my students over the years have gotten into this side hustle. You decide you want to buy and resell stuff on eBay. You hit the garage sales, you hit the thrift stores, find expensive clothing and things that sometimes have the tag still on them, and you resell it on eBay. So what things should you consider before you begin with this? I'm going to buy stuff cheap, garage sales, thrift stores, Goodwill, and then resell it on eBay. So I'll do this one for you. What are some things you need to consider? Well, a lot of time going around to all those thrift stores and that looking through stuff, and 99.999% of what you see is not going to be anything you can make some money on. But then you find something, okay? Now you got to pay shipping. You got time invested listing all that on eBay. eBay takes a cut of it. So I find a Nike polo shirt that's never been worn, and I pay $10 for it, and I sell it for 25. Hey, I made 15 bucks. Yeah, well, how many hours did I have going around and looking in thrift stores? How many hours it took me half an hour to get it all posted on eBay, to communicate with the person that bought it, to pack it up, take it to the post office. I got, you know, packing material that I got to pay for. So did I really make any money off of it? That's where you got to really have scale with something like that. This is a good one here. A lot of my students do this, or I shouldn't say a lot, some of them do this. You decide you want to drive for Uber. Hey, I like to drive. I don't want to invest money in equipment or anything. Uber's a ready-made place where I can make, maybe $100 extra a week driving for Uber. What are some things you need to consider before this? Anybody have any thoughts on this? Oh, let me go back. Things I think about
I think
are
car
Yep, go
repairs.
ahead.
Someone said car repairs, Sadie. I say gas and insurance. Reliable
Yeah,
car.
gas and insurance. Uber's a great gig when gas is now down to, I got gas today for $2.59 a gallon, but when gas is $4 a gallon, yeah. Plus, you got car insurance, but if your car insurance finds out you're driving for Uber, it may raise your rates. And what about wear and tear on your car? Now instead of driving 150 miles a week, you're driving, 800 miles a week. Stuff's going to go wrong with your car. You're going to need future oil changes, things like that. So, all things to think about. Let's look at the next one. You want to do contract MTM services for independent pharmacies. What should you consider before you begin? Things that come to mind to me are independents are going out of business and selling out a lot right now because of all the issues with reimbursement. So how many independents are even still around? Is there a conflict of interest? I work for Walgreens or Walmart. Is there a conflict of interest with me doing that? These MTM services, do I gotta drive to the actual locations to do them there? And that's a lot of time and energy. Maybe it's an hour to drive to some of these independents. So a lot
Donnie,
of things.
someone said, how about contracting with the physician to do MTM? Is that
Yeah. How about contracting with physicians to do MTM? You need to think about things with that. How much, first of all, will the physician wants a piece of what you're getting for doing the MTM? Say you're billing through Outcomes or through their insurance company. Does the physician want a piece of that? Would the physician pay for you to come in and do that? Can the physician bill the patient's insurance company for your services? They probably can only bill incident two, which is you have to be in the building doing the MTM with the patient, and they can only bill $19.50, somewhere between $19 and $25. So can you make enough money? Can they make enough money? But there's lots of opportunities there. You can be creative. A lot of physicians struggle with a lot of that. And, when they don't meet formulary guidelines and that, they get hit with financial penalties, that then cost them sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. So a lot of things to think about there. Great things.
yeah, Jody mentioned insurance reimbursement.
Yep, insurance reimbursement's probably, probably one of the biggest ones. You decide you want to be an on-demand or contingent pharmacist. What things should you consider before you do that? Let's say I decide, what, I'm going to be this pharmacist that a chain and independent can call on a moment's notice and I'll go in and work. But I'm going to want $75 an hour to do it, okay, on the weekends or nights or holidays, okay? What are some things you need to think about there? Let's say you're retired and you want to start this little side hustle. Well, number one, you're going to need your own liability insurance. Number two, what you don't think about is, yeah, $75 an hour sounds really great till you have to pay the 7.5% Social Security match on the income you make. So that knocks 7.5% right off the top, right there. What kind of help are you going into? If they need pharmacists, is it really a location that a practice site you really want to go work in? So a lot of different things there. Think about. And then you decide you want to be a consultant. What things should you consider before you begin? You're going to consult with pharmacies on how to increase revenue, how to increase patient engagement. It could be a lot of different things. Okay? What are some of the things you need to think about there? I'm going to give you the biggest one to think about. As somebody who does a little bit of consulting, in academia, a lot of academics do consulting on the side. The biggest problem for consultants right now is getting paid. Okay. I do the work, lay out all this time and expense, and a lot of these companies now are taking anywhere from 3 to 6 months to pay you. Do you have the financial wherewithal and the patience to wait 6 months to get paid for something? And there are sometimes you don't get paid at all. Companies go out of business and things like that happen. So, that's something to think about with being a consultant is, can you afford to wait to get paid? They're not going to pay you, every 2 weeks or once a month like your regular job is. And it may take a lot of, I don't want to say fighting or negotiating or bothering some of these places to get paid.
So that's the target disease states, and then when you consult, just wondering how your billing works.
Yeah, targeting disease states, and then billing's the hardest, the toughest thing right now, especially in pharmacy. When you think about billing, you know, we're not quite to the point. We've got provider status in Ohio, but not everybody's paying for very, and hardly anybody's paying for very much right now. So how do you make that work? A lot of right now when you're doing consulting for disease state management and that, it has to be almost on a cash basis, or it has to be a niche where people are willing to pay for it. And this is what I tell my students. I say, look, you know, why would an insurance company want to pay for something if the patient wouldn't want to pay for it themselves? And the history with this is, think about chiropractic care. 40 years ago, insurance companies did not pay for chiropractic care. Patients had to pay out of pocket. They saw a demand for it, they saw a need for it, and they paid for it. Now, after it became more common and patients started demanding that type of service, that's when insurance companies got on board. But yeah, that's the big thing in pharmacy right now is, how are you going to get somebody to pay for it? You can't rely on the insurance company to pay for it. But there are some opportunities out there where you can partner with physicians and accountable care organizations and patient-centered medical homes. And, a lot of times what I tell pharmacists is, sometimes you just got to go at risk. You got to say, you know what? Bring me in. I'll do this consulting for you. These are the outcomes that we'll jointly agree to. And if I meet them and show that I can do what I say I can do, then there'll be some type of financial reward that you'll share with me based on cost savings or money savings or increased star ratings from the insurance company. You get bonus payments, and people get bonus payments healthcare organizations and physicians get bonus payments there. So yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges. All right, I'm gonna stop sharing my screen. I want to leave a couple of minutes here for any questions. I'm gonna look in the chat. You can either unmute and ask the question, or you can type something in the chat. I hope it gives you some things to think about with a side hustle. Best thing to do is just get started reading about it. Get started reading one of those 4 books. Read some things online. Talk to a mentor, talk to other people involved in those types of similar endeavors, and that's the best way to get started. Thanks everybody for joining me on this Tuesday night, and I'll open it up here for a couple minutes for questions.
Quiet group this evening.
I know I threw a lot at them tonight, so
You've got my brain going, that's for sure.
Hi, Dr. Sullivan. It's Jody.
hey Jody.
Hi. I love that. I loved your presentation. It was great. Very energetic. I just wanted to know, I guess, some of the things that you mentioned, I actually do have an interest in, the MTM. I currently work as an MTM pharmacist from home, and I love doing that, but I would love to go actually see people or go to a nursing home or something. I think it's a little intimidating just to think about any sort of like legal, or how do you even, go about researching that? I guess, would you be open to having a conversation with me just to kind of know what roadblocks I would be facing? Or, my company does all of I work for a small company, but they do all of the takeaways and things like that. I don't know all of the legal requirements that are done for me as I do my own MTMs.
Yeah, Jody. I'll put my email in the chat here. Reach out to me and we'll set up a time to talk.
Okay.
The first thing you'll want to do is, well, you want to set up an LLC, a limited liability company, because the last thing you want to do is have this little side gig, something unforeseen happen that's not even your fault, and you get sued, and you don't want personal assets and your 401k and your house and all
Right.
that kind of yeah, kind of people going after that. So that's the first thing you want to do is set up an LLC, but we can talk about a lot of those types of things.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Looks like
There's
we
a
got
question here
one.
that says, you mentioned a side hustle can become a business. Is there a break point to that, such as the number of hours you're investing, or is it a monetary delineation? It's up to you how you set that. Some people say, when it comes, most people set it monetarily, that, for my side hustle to transition to a business, I need to hit $150,000 in sales, okay, or in profit. That gives me, my income that I'm making now when you take into account, my Social Security taxes and disability and health insurance and all those types of things. But other people may say, you know what, money is not really the main object with me. Maybe I'm retired or getting close to retirement, or maybe my spouse or significant other has an awesome job, and I just want to turn this side hustle into a business because I think it's viable and something I really, really enjoy and want to spend more time doing it. So sometimes it's a time thing. They're just like, hey, I just love this so much and I want to devote 40 hours a week to this, or 45 hours a week. Finances are not as big an issue for me because my significant other has a really good job. And um, so yeah, it's usually financial is where the break point is you're looking at for most people. But for some people, it could be, hours. I just want to put more hours in this or need to put more hours in this, and I'm ready to make the jump to it being a business. And yes, Nua, reach out to me. Maybe we'll set up a time with me, you, and Jody, or we can talk just the two of us. Get together, and I just put my email in the chat up there. So yeah. And I would tell you, Jody just put that in there. Jody, you and Nuha, you two should kind of chat and this is what these things are all about, is creating these network connections like this. So the two of you should definitely chat and talk about what your interests are and what you've learned and where you want to go with it. And after the two of you talk, set up a time with me. We'll set up a Zoom and we'll kind of all three kind of get together. I love talking business and helping people, but Aaron, this is exactly what these types of programs I hope to stimulate, is Buckeyes helping Buckeyes become successful at what they want to do career-wise and personal-wise. And, I tell my students, I say, that when I interview prospective students, they always say, what's the number one thing about coming to Ohio State? I go, there are a lot of good schools of pharmacy out there. Most of them, all the ones in Ohio, you're all going to get trained very well. We all have, really good pass rates. Ours is one of the best in Ohio, but they're all going to make you good pharmacists. The key with Ohio State is its alumni network. I can't tell you how many times a student comes to me and says, hey, I really have an interest in nuclear pharmacy. And I just pick up the phone, call one of our alumni. Hey, I'd love to talk to this student or have them come out or give them some advice. So yes, this networking of all of us together and, Buckeyes helping Buckeyes is, I think, the strongest thing we have going for us here in the College of Pharmacy and at the university. Well, I appreciate everybody joining in tonight. Again, I hope it gave you some things to think about. And remember, it's a two-step forward, one-step back thing, even with the side hustle. So don't get discouraged. Keep moving forward. And as we see there with Aaron's son, it is awesome to keep family first. I love bringing family into things, and it creates, it creates the people are human and have real lives outside of things. So thanks everybody for joining tonight, and go Bucks, and I hope to see you in one of these future sessions. Thanks for having me, Aaron.
Thanks for joining us, Donnie, and thank you all for joining us this evening. You'll receive a copy of this recording along with the links for the CE and then another survey just asking, what else do you want to hear from us from a CE perspective, from a lifelong learning? How can we meet you where you're at in your life stage? Our next lifelong learning event will be on Thursday, May 1st, and it's going to be loan payback and financial planning with fellow alum Tim Albrecht. If you are a recent grad or you have children graduating soon and want to learn about loan paybacks or financial planning or just want to come hang out with Alum, it will be offered hybrid. It will be at the Columbus Brewing Beer Hall over there by the East Market. More information will be included in the email and on our website. In the email I send out in a couple days, we'll include the link for the CE, so be sure to fill that out. And thank you all for joining us. Donnie, thank you for your time. My brain is definitely going. So if anybody has any questions following this event, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great evening, everyone.